Welcome to the Solution Architect Show. Your host is Ben. Today, I'm very excited to be joined by Meena. She's a solution architect, a speaker who specializes in cloud native architecture. She's also a founder of Tech Beyond Gender, a platform dedicated to advancing diversity, inclusion, and innovation in the future-ready workplace. Welcome to the show, Meena.
Thank you. Thanks, Ben. Thanks for inviting me.
Before we dive into today's topic, do you want to maybe introduce yourself and also maybe describing your current role as a solution architect?
Cool. Awesome. So I'm Meena Satishkumar. I'm a contract consultant solution architect at the moment. I work in AA Insurance as a solution architect. And my passion lies with helping organizations design systems that are not just technically sound, but also aligned with their strategic goals. So my background as such has spanned around data, building cloud infrastructure for data teams, and also working on several integration pieces of work, mostly around data. And I worked across banking and government sectors in New Zealand. And what I really love the most about being a solution architect is intersection of the technology, people, and the process, right? So where we are constantly involved in translating a complex technical landscape into solutions that generally make a difference to the business. So as you mentioned, alongside my solution architecture work, I'm also the founder of Tech Beyond Gender Work, an initiative that amplifies the voices of women and gender diverse professionals in tech through research, storytelling, and community engagement.
Yeah, welcome again. So I think solution architecture is about sharing basically a solution architect journey. So I'm just going to ask, what's your background before you becoming a solution architect, and what sort of motivates you to make this transition?
So I started off my career quite hands-on, more in the data space, like being a data engineer. And from there, I moved into being a systems administrator for a data platform, and then moved into building cloud infrastructure for data teams. And while I was working across those different sort of domains in the data space, I really realized that I was more naturally drawn to connecting the dots, like understanding how different systems work, different processes work, and how people come together to deliver value. So that curiosity of bigger picture led me more naturally towards becoming an architect. So for me, being a solution architect wasn't just about moving up technically. It was about shifting people's perspective, right? From delivering individual components to shaping outcomes that clearly align with their business strategy.
Yeah, that's a really good question. That's a really good answer. I'm going to ask, right? So when I did the transition, I find it really hard because I'm pretty hands-on. I'm probably call myself a geeky developer. And the drive for me to make the shift is the technology I used to make a good living, SharePoint, as a development platform is pretty much dead because people are now just using SharePoint or OneDrive as a vanilla product. You don't see them to do much development. So I was forced to make the transition. I find it really difficult. And that's why I started the show to share my journey and also to ask for help, to basically listen to others' story. So I guess my question is, do you face any challenges when you make that transition?
Yeah, of course. So one of the biggest challenge was learning how to balance the depth and breadth of the work. So especially being working in the data space, like starting from being a data engineer, data analyst, right? The natural tendency is to dwell deeper into the details and get lost in the details. So when I first started off as an architect, that was my main challenge, just to pull myself out from that minor details and look at systems and processes in totality. And that is what is really required, right, for architects to be able to connect the dots and seeing multiple domains and being able to see the trade-offs clearly. So that was my main challenge, to be able to just draw myself out and look at the bigger picture, not get lost in the details the first time I look at something. Then it did naturally become a bit more effortlessly, but it did take a little bit longer to actually train my mind to be able to pull myself out. And another key lesson was learning to communicate effectively, right? So, with architecture, as you will be very well aware of, it's a lot about storytelling and influencing as it is about the design. So it's not just about drawing pretty pictures, right? It's about creating an understanding and being able to demonstrate the bigger picture in a way where it makes sense to the business and to the technical teams. And personally, as a woman and a migrant in tech, there are moments of doubt. Okay, so do I fit in here? How am I going to work my way up being an architect and stuff? But it's so the experiences that I've had also builds the resilience and now empathy as well towards others who want to move and become an architect. So these qualities have now shaped up how I also lead and mentor others.
Yeah, thanks for your question. So I think that sort of segue to my next question really well. So you mentioned about women and architecture. So when I started as a developer, so I can sense that the ratio, but then there's Scrum Master and tester and BA in the mix. I think that balance up a little bit. But when I look at the architecture as a profession, I think the women's representative is even lower comparing to even a developer. So I think my next question is obviously you mentioned about you create a tech beyond gender and focusing on improving that area. So what sort of really inspired you to create a tech beyond gender, and what sort of impact do you hope it makes to the tech community?
So I saw, like many years ago, right? Like way more than 10 years ago, I started off actually working. Like soon after university, and like after having finished my master's degree, I had an opportunity to teach research, like business research and market research papers to undergraduate students in Wellington at one stage. And then I was being in the academic area, I was like, I don't know if I quite want to be in the academic area. I just want to move into the industry. So I started off in a temping role within an organization, and that led me into a data warehousing role. That was my very first technical sort of job. And there it was a challenge for me. I was the only female, and again, only migrant as well in that team. And for some reason, it was just too difficult. I couldn't really figure out, like being a woman as well, I was internalizing the experience more. And I wasn't sure if it was me who couldn't really fit into an environment, or if it was a wider systemic issue. But anyway, I just gave it like a year and then decided, okay, this is not for me. I want to move more into the business side of things. And that's when I became a data analyst and then eventually a data engineer. So that sort of experience, I actually sort of I ignored that whole phase of my life and I thought, okay, maybe tech is not for me. Until a few years later, like few years ago, I got an opportunity to move back more into the technical space as a system administrator. And when I moved into that space once again, I started noticing how you don't really see many women, especially if you're in the infrastructure area, or constantly dealing with the security teams, networking teams, and you don't really see many women in those spaces. And that's when I was like more inquisitive, and it was just a curiosity. I was like, okay, why do we not see many women here? Is there any research that's been done in this space? But not many research has been really done in that area too in New Zealand. So that's when in 2023, late 2023, I launched a survey that I did it independently and just ran it as me. Once again, it was quite challenging to get women to complete surveys. It was a huge, it took me like few weeks. I think the whole project was about 3 months. And then I have data like research sort of background. So I decided to launch the survey, do the research myself. And the findings were quite alarming. How many women in the technology sector reported about microaggression, reported about how they have very limited opportunities to progress up in technical career roles, like advancing themselves in technical roles. So this really got attracted a lot of the media in a way in New Zealand, and that was published in many different media. And then there were a couple of gender diverse professionals who got in touch with me also saying that why don't you expand your research to also include us in the mix? And then I thought, okay, in 2024, I will launch another survey. And then I thought to myself, okay, if I'm going to be doing that again, it will be good to actually do it under a banner. And that's when I decided to launch Tech Beyond Gender in 2025 around April. And then I thought, okay, let me launch the research later in the year. And then I just thought to myself, okay, research is fine, but let me actually think about creating a safe space for women to share their stories, to share their experiences. And that's when the idea about the podcast came up, where I decided to create a platform where different voices, different stories, and different experiences could be heard, not just as statistics, right, but as human experiences, human journeys. So through podcast, then research and mentoring, the Tech Beyond Gender aims to inspire a systemic change. Now, having said that, I won't say that this is going to change the systemic barriers as such, because I feel the root cause is so much more ingrained. It's not going to be a change that will happen instantly overnight. And what I'm doing is just nothing much. Like I'm just trying to create awareness and also create a platform where other women can listen to other women's stories and get inspired and feel that, okay, I can also do something in the technology space in New Zealand. So that's the simple machine. But I feel that addressing a wider systemic barrier is just going to be a huge mission on its own, and that's going to take another entire lifetime.
Yeah, and this is very inspiring, and thanks for doing this. I have two daughters, and I'm sure they could be a beneficiary of the work that you're doing. Really appreciate that. Coming back to the question, you work in the data space and AI eating on data or relying on the data. I guess my next question is, so how do you find AI tools like generative AI actually shaping how architecture or design the work that we are doing? And also how the AI actually shifting how our decision maker making decisions today?
I think AI is transforming architecture in multiple levels, right? It's in
Yeah.
a way, it's accelerating the design. So we can generate more architectural diagrams, evaluate trade-offs, and make sure that we've considered all different options for a specific problem, right? I think it helps with more data-driven architecture in a way where the data is more easily, readily available. So, generative AI specifically, it helps with bridging the communication gap as well, I feel, where architects can now prototype or generate documentations more quickly. And that helps us getting more time for more strategy and human centric design, is how I see. Because, as you know, with the technology is ever evolving, ever changing, and as architects, we can't really be on top of every different technology that's coming up. And the organization's priorities change. So in a way, like if I want to evaluate different options for a specific business problem, it just becomes so much more easier to bounce off ideas, making sure that I'm thinking about the different trade-offs that I need to be considering when I'm actually proposing a solution to an organization. But then again, an architect's role becomes very critical as well here, right? We need to apply discernment. Ethics comes into picture, and then governance as well is required so that AI driven decisions align with organization values and also provide long term sustainability.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I find in my work. But a lot of the company that I work for, so they're busy actually tidying up their data layer. A lot of the compliance manager are being a bit hesitant to actually putting the AI layers because the generative AI layer will expose a lot of the thing that they shouldn't do or the thing that they didn't do well, really amplify the thing they didn't really do well in the data space. So have you seen that similar thing? Is that one of the challenges we try to getting generative AI in the enterprise?
I have personally not worked on implementing an AI solution in any of the enterprises, but within Tech Beyond Gender, we actually built a prototype of building an AI tool. So for that, we used AWS Bedrock, and we just created a prototype last year, and we presented in AWS Community Day as well, where it was meant to be more like a mentoring tool for women to actually just go in, ask questions. It could be career related questions, and then it would just provide some feedback. But this was based on real life experiences of people in New Zealand. So, literally, what we did was we had all of the transcripts that we had from our podcast, and we just fed that into a LLM model, and we just created an interface where queries can be made, right? Now, that once again, that was just a prototype, and that's really highlighted how important it is to have your data ready, right? Your data needs to be completely representative of the population. So if I have a very specific group of people talking in a Tech Beyond Gender podcast, and then if I feed that into the LLM model, then obviously that's once again going to be biased, right? And that's exactly what we are seeing in some of the generative AI tools. If you ask for a software engineer picture, you would actually see a male's picture, not a female's picture. So having the data ready so you don't really introduce more ambiguity or biases is very critical. So obviously data needs to be in shape, and it's not just being in a format, specific format. It's about having data which would represent what you're trying to achieve is important.
Yeah, yeah. And you also, so by the way, for people who are listening to our show, we'll definitely put Mina's link in and also her podcast. And hopefully the tool that you mentioned that we probably can put in there as well. So you mentioned about mentoring. After I have done this show and start posting some of my journey on LinkedIn, I got asked a lot by probably senior developer or engineers who want to make to solution architecture. So what advice would you to give to them on how to make that transition?
So I would say that you should start thinking about expanding your context, right? So it's not just about seeing how a specific bit of code or a system works and how it's about seeing how your code or a system that you have built impact a customer, impacts the business, and think about the larger ecosystem. So I think that is more important. And second is being very comfortable about ambiguity, right? And I love being an engineer. I used to be an engineer, and how I would want everything explicitly mentioned to me, right? But being an architect, you get more comfortable with ambiguity. Architects, as we really rarely have complete information to make sound decisions, right? We need to make some assumptions. We need to just talk to people and think about all different options. So I think that's another thing, that being comfortable with ambiguity, right? And another skill that I would really emphasize for any engineer or developer wanting to make the transition is to about nurturing the communication and collaborative skills. Now, architecture is a team sport. You spend a lot of time talking to people, making sure that everyone is in alignment and stuff. So it is about making sure that you build the skill sets to bring people together, to think about the wider business goals and making sure you're delivering something that will meet a business need. And most important and lastly is about being curious. And I feel that the best architects I know are like lifelong learners, right? It's about being able to explore new technologies, new patterns, new ideas, and staying curious and being able to make an impact by being curious is more important.
Yeah, I think that was really important, especially around your last probably 2 points around being curious and also expanding that skill set to improve your communication and collaboration skills. And definitely people think we as an architect make all the calls is quite the opposite. We try to facilitate the conversation so we can present the right information to the decision maker. We might make a recommendation, but at the end of the day, it's the sort of the higher up to taking our input to make the right call. And when I talking to them, I think maybe the mistake they normally find is they will ask, maybe because they work on the tech for so long, they would ask what sort of the technical skills I'm missing. What are the tech certification? What I need to do? Do I need to learn Azure, AWS? So normally my response is, you probably got, if you are in the sort of tech industry for maybe more than 5 years, you probably got enough technical skills. It's the non-technical skills, or we call that soft skills, but very hard to learn soft skills. That was sort of the factor that decide whether you can make the transition or not, because there's people who didn't realize it's not from a developer to architect. It's not a promotion. It's actually a completely role change. It's requiring you to have a lot of different skill sets. I think we're almost at the end of the conversation. Felt that I probably should have asked a lot of more questions. Do you have anything to add? Anything that I should ask that I didn't?
I know, I think we've pretty much covered several different aspects of what I'm doing and stuff. Yeah. And I think there's one more thing that I would like to add, right? It can be a bit daunting at times to even think about, oh, how do I move? Because soon after I became a solution architect, there were many women who contacted me and asked me, okay, how did you make the transition and how can I go about doing it, right? As you said, technical skills, yes, like most, if you've been an engineer, developer working in technology, you obviously have those technical skills. And how do you build those communication skills and stuff, right? I feel it's not just purely communication skills. It's also being able to have that confidence in yourself to be able to deliver a message across. And I think it's more important to have the tools and techniques to be able to stay grounded. And for me, it is like meditation helps a lot. I do spend a lot of time meditating, doing yoga, doing breathing exercises. And that often helps me have a sense of clarity when I'm communicating, relaxes me, gives me the confidence when I'm stressed that I can handle the situation. I think similarly, that is more needed. Like, it's not, people often think that getting a technical certification is important. Yes, it is important, but it's equally important to actually take care of our own well being. It's more apt to talk about it now, as we just had the Mental Health Awareness Week last week, right? It's like if you don't know how to row one boat, you cannot row any other boat, right? So you need to have the skill sets to be able to manage your mind, being able to navigate your career and your personal life more effectively. And it is more important to pay attention to that more now than ever before. And it's important that we all talk about this in several different platforms. And so being able to anchor yourself to your inner well-being makes a huge difference.
Yeah, that's explained really well, especially the confidence thing. I think you find your confidence through medication, but mediation, I find my one through a lot of mentors. So when I started the transition, I told them for the probably the first 2 or 3 years, every day I want to quit. But it just I got a lot of support. So I've been able to talk to them. They explain to me in a way that you don't enjoy the work. There's normally two reasons you don't enjoy something. One is you haven't truly mastered that skills to be able to enjoy. Another is you don't really enjoy it. It's kind of like he mentioned about like skiing or playing a new sport, right? So at the beginning, when you haven't really got the skills, nobody enjoyed it. They putting that analogy to say it's not like you don't enjoy it. It's you need to put the work in. You need to get the experience in order to master all the skills. Then at that time, you can make a call to say whether you actually enjoyed it or not. And that's basically, yeah, what I did. And after 2 years, I found myself, I really enjoyed it after I be able to talk to people and yeah, understand all their context and be able to, as you mentioned, link all the dots. And I just find, yeah, this is what I really want to do rather than go back to programming.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, cool. I think thanks for sharing your story, Minna, and for listeners, thanks for tuning in. If you already work as a solution architect and want to share your story, feel free to reach out to me. My LinkedIn will be on the show notes, and also putting Minna's LinkedIn on the show notes. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thanks for your time.